Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting us here to honor your loved one and our shipmate. Today we will honor his service to our country with military honors, and I'll begin with playing a military taps. During taps, if you're a veteran, if you could render a salute at that time, but everyone else can place their hand over their heart. Thank you.
In the spirit of Paul, I know what he'd be asking me to ask everyone right now, and that don't feel like strangers. Come up a little closer. He was a sports fan, so let's call it the huddle. Let's huddle together a little more. Come a little closer. Come a little closer. There's no strangers here in Paul's life. We will continue the service after the beautiful military honors with a Psalm of David, a prayer for Paul's soul, followed by several eulogies. Then we will do the rendering of the garments as a sign of mourning and loss, followed by the actual burial, the rite of passage into the world to come, the eternal world. Chapter 23. I know you've heard it before. Mizmor leDavid. Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binaot deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yanahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'magli tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeitz al mavet lo irara, ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha heima yenachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorerai. Vishanta vashemen roshi kosir vaya. Ach tov v'chesed yedefuni. Kol yemei chayai. V'shafti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. A psalm by David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul. He directs me in the paths of righteousness for the sake of his name. Even if I will walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they will comfort me. You will prepare a table before my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup is full. Only goodness and kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for many long years. And indeed, Paul did live for many long years in the house of God. Family members, you may be seated.
I'll never get up now.
Dear Paul, we are together, and that's what's important. Family and friends, to fulfill our duty, our honor and privilege, to escort you onto your world in a dignified, righteous Jewish way. And thank you all for coming here to do just that. Paul Fine's Hebrew name was Pesach. It's a nice Jewish name. What's the English name for Pesach? Luckily, his parents didn't name him Passover. He wouldn't have been so fine. Paul Pesach was named after his grandfather. His father's name was Raphael, and his father's name was Pesach. And so he was named Pesach after his grandfather, and he named his youngest son, Richard, after his father's name, Raphael. What a Jewish tradition. The Talmud teaches that the Hebrew name given to a person is divinely inspired. It aligns with some deeper characteristics of the person, of the nature of the human being that is being called that Hebrew name. So since Paul's name is Pesach, which means Passover, let's focus a little bit on the theme of Passover and create a storyline of how this connects with Paul's life. Born to Philip and Molly Fine in 1929. Why does that feel like a long time ago? 1929. Someone once asked a 95-year-old, what's the difference between 90 and 95? He said, a little less peer pressure. Paul outlived his generation of family and friends. The holiday of Pesach, of Passover, brings to mind the Seder, which combines several themes. One is family, right? The most celebrated family holiday is the Seder on Pesach. Number two, food. Number three, humble. And number four, the holiday represents happy. Those of you that knew Paul know what I mean. The family will share more details, but I'd like to connect some dots and bring some, if not all, of Paul's life's main themes together. Number one is family. We never really know what shapes a person. Sometimes it's a tragedy that can have the most impact. But losing a father at the age of 8 is definitely a defining moment in one's life. Paul was the ultimate family man. He worked from a very young age to provide for his family after his father died. He was protective of the relationship he had with his mother, sometimes in a linear manner and sometimes in a different way. But it was all about the connection with his mother. Michelle shared that in protecting his relationship with his mother, he made some trouble at times, perhaps trying to keep her close and others away. I would describe it as he made some trouble, but he wasn't troubled. He had a healthy core, shaped by hard work, a strong body and spirit, and a sense of responsibility to be a provider. After marrying the love of his life, Harriet, together they became a magnet that continued to hold the family together. Parties included both sides of the family, both Paul and Harriet's. They were the glue. And this prioritization of family was certainly part of his parenting. Love was not necessarily spoken, but it was. It simply was. You knew that he cared, he loved, he wanted the best for his children. While he may have worked you kids hard, some might say a little too hard, it was his way of helping raise you to achieve success in life. And while he was an early riser and off to work, which meant he did not see you in the mornings enough, he was present in the home for suppers and in evenings. The memories abound of family gathering together in the house. Your house was a central house for so many family members and friends because he was all about family. He was a good father. He empowered his children through a rare commodity in these days. It's called trust. He trusted his children because he believed in them. He allowed you to explore, and he led more by example than by preaching. And family is family. Not everybody can say this, but family is family no matter what. That beautiful, easygoing ability to care about family extended later in life to the new family that he found, the Cowan family, which became part of his family because family was family. And he developed a love and connection in this very spirit of family that was the core of his being. It was a two-way street. Maxine and Paul were genuinely in love, and he became family to her family as well. Now, we may take that for granted, but we shouldn't. This takes a very special spirit. Anuba shared a wife and family after his wife passed away, which left a very big void in his heart and presumably in his stomach. We come to food. What Jewish tradition or holiday happens without food? The seeds perhaps were planted well before he had an official place to call his store. As a young child, after losing his father, he was selling strawberries. But things got serious when he took on work in the food business as a full-time job. The food business was not an easy job. Waking extremely early and hard physical labor with few breaks. And then he reincarnated several times. When one opportunity closed, he made sure to find another and yet another in order to make sure that he can provide for his family. And it's pretty astounding that when a fire broke out in his store and he had to stop providing through the official means, he found a way. And he started to sell, going door to door, selling food. It's the modern DoorDash. But that's the world that he knew, and that was the tools to provide for his family. The roots of produce come from the earth, and he loved planting and seeing things grow from a little seed to a colorful and life-giving plant. Question is, was selling food his real lifelong calling? I wonder, because later in life, when most people would think of retirement, he must have had an intuition that he was going to have a long life, and he reinvented himself as a salesman. And he did better selling waterproofing services than he did in the food business. He was a natural salesperson. Which leads me to this third theme of Passover, which is being humble. The matzah that we eat on Passover is a symbol of humility. That's why it's flat and thin and no fluff and simple ingredients. The best salespeople are people that are humble. It's not about them. It's about their genuine interest in others. Paul was fortunate to get this new opportunity because I believe it talked more to his personality. He had an easy way about him. He did not take himself too seriously. Humility expressed itself in how he sold to potential customers and how he interacted with others in general. Others didn't mean necessarily people of great status. Others meant any human being. He can sell to anyone, urban, suburban, because he loved people. Humble people love people. You know, humility also is another ingredient for happiness. And Passover is a happy time, and Paul was happy. Bobby described Paul as an excellent father. His mantra was, go live life and have fun. It's easier said than done. But for Paul, it was easy. That was his nature. Life does not have to go as planned to be happy. You can even have two left hands and still be happy. No wonder dancing was a hobby of his, because dancing expresses happiness, uplifting oneself. And that's why he loved dancing, and he was the last guy standing in many ways. I think being happy through humility also contributes to a long life. Look, genetically, it's a question if Paul could have lived so long. He did have a heart attack after losing his wife, and his genes may not have spoken to longevity. But a good attitude and happy feelings count for a ton of health. He had legitimate reasons to question life, to turn sour, but Paul, like his Hebrew name Pesach, lived happily. He shared that happiness with others. He lifted people's spirits wherever he went. No wonder, Michelle, you were comfortable and happy bringing him to your social occasions, because he was a happy individual. Nobody wants a kvetch around him. We have enough of those. And his one-liners, maybe they were simple one-liners, like, my name is Jimmy, right? These were simple one-liners that evoked joy in other people. They weren't boring. They weren't corny, because they were genuine. And life, when it comes from the heart, this is something that gets renewed and happens like new every moment, every time you say it again. His navigation may not have been that good. Just about as good as the Jewish people wandering in the desert for 40 years. But those were the small things in life. Paul lived a happy life, defined by family, food and providing, humility, and happy. What does this mean for us? Well, when a light is taken, we all need to step in and shine a little brighter to compensate for that which is missing. The family can keep his memory alive by living his values. There are so many to choose from that he left us with. I'll close with this. Thank you. Passover was only the beginning of the journey. When Moses redeemed the Jews, the Torah says he told them, count for 7 weeks. Count 7 weeks, because the purpose of Exodus was to receive the mission. The purpose was to receive the Torah at Mount Sinai. And Moses tells them, count 7 weeks till we get to Mount Sinai and we receive the 10 Commandments and we receive our purpose. After 7 weeks, we have another holiday. It's called the holiday of Shavuot. That is the holiday where the Jewish people stood at Mount Sinai. It's exactly 7 weeks after Passover. Paul passed away on the holiday of Shavuot. When we count those 7 weeks, the culmination of Pesach, he passed away at exactly 7 o'clock in the morning. He returned a happy soul to his Creator. It was clearly a sense of fulfillment of his mission, of his wholesomeness. In his last moments, He was reaching for something beyond the material and tangible. He was reaching back to God, ready to begin his next stage of living, while leaving his family with a legacy, an amazing legacy to carry on. Yehi zichro baruch, may his memory be a great blessing. Marty, it's your turn.
First of all, thank you everybody for coming. It's much appreciated. And can everybody hear me out here? No? We have this correct?
You heard me?
We heard you loud and clear.
Make it then you're eating it. It's food.
Yeah, well, how about now? Not at all.
They're good.
I'm good? Okay, I'll just speak louder.
Just come a little closer.
All right, think about this. Paul was alive for 11 decades. Take that in for a second. Okay, second's up. We're done with that. Now, his purpose for us as kids, and for Harriet and Maxine later on, was to make sure we had what we needed to keep going, to have our own families, and do well with our own families, and especially make people laugh. Get a smile on someone's face. And that is something not only the Fine family did, but the Brown family from my mom's side did. And it's something that we like to carry on for a long time. If you can't make somebody laugh, can't make somebody smile, or if you can't even laugh at yourself, then what's the purpose of being here? I mean, I'm looking at my friends of mine, friends of Michelle's, Michael's, Richie's out there. He made everybody feel at home, and they appreciated it. That's right. But he hit, even in serious moments, and my cousin David can relate to this. My dad was a member of the Forest City Masons, and there is a very sacred initiation, like the secret handshake, or that I don't know about, but where they sit him down, and his brother Louis, our Uncle Louis, was the Grand Master of the Masons. But he couldn't help himself. My dad couldn't help himself. He said, Paul, this is a very serious initiation. They had him sitting down, and he was in a chair, and the other, I guess, officials of the Masons were around to make sure things went right. And it was his brother, my Uncle Louis' job to do the ceremony, to do the initiation. He looks at Paul, and he's sitting down, and he says, Paul, fine? He goes, are you comfortable? And he says, I make a living. But that's the kind of guy he was. And it's such a serious initiation that Uncle Louis had to even turn around with a smile on his face, so we were told. But whenever a nurse came in, even at age 95 and 9 months old almost, what is a nurse first thing they say? Okay, are you comfortable? And he'll say, I make a living. But they get it. They understand. He was trying to make somebody laugh at all times. And that, I think, has filtered down to all us kids. And it's something that I will take to my lasting place, but I think all of us will be the same. Now, a couple years ago, we were right here with another ceremony from Maxine, his second wife. And her gravesite and her first husband's gravesite is right here. How close? I'm talking 3 or 4 away. But at the funeral home, Larry gave one of the most stirring eulogies, and it's our turn to reciprocate to Larry and Cheryl, because that was a second family to us, to Paul. And he treated them like his family, their kids, their grandkids basically only knew Paul as their grandfather. So thank you both for accepting him. And I know Larry's going to speak a little bit later, or maybe next, I don't know. At any rate, it was time for us to give back to you. So thank you very much. In closing, I think that's all I have. I just wanted to keep it kind of short, but get the message across that this guy, he made everybody laugh, made everybody happy. He certainly made all of us happy. He worked his tail off his entire life, missed a lot of events, that whether it was Michelle's cheerleading, Michael, mine, and Richie's sporting events, because he was always working. But it's not to say he didn't care. He always asked how we did, what we did. And that was enough for us. You don't have to be there to be there, if you know what I mean. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Paul and Harriet had 13 great-grandchildren. Is that right? What an honor, what a legacy. So we'll hear now from the three great-grandchildren together. Madison, Ryan, and Landon. Come up. Don't be shy.
Thank you for coming, Paul. We wanted to tell you about our great-grandpa. Our papa was a really funny guy, and every time he saw me, he would say, "My Madison." The first time I saw him in the hospital last week, he told me he wanted pizza and only pizza. I was so happy to visit him last week in the hospital.
Can you turn up the volume?
Papa always asked about the sports that I would play. We would talk about other sports like basketball and baseball. I was really happy to visit him in the hospital and say my goodbyes.
Papa was the best great grandpa that we could ever have in our life. He always asked me about soccer, also commented about my goals, and I really like to see him there.
As we gather today, we remember Papa's own to celebrate for the rest of our life.
We all love our great-grandpa so much, and we'll miss him every day. When I was in the hospital and saying goodbye, it was the most memorable hug I've ever gotten. I will never forget this day.
Thank you. On a very personal level, I have a thank you for Paul, and that is that Madison and Ryan and Landon are my neighbors. They live right around the block from us. So we're kind of semi-adopted Madison. Is that okay? Semi-adopted her. She comes over for Shabbat and for the matzah balls. It's all about food, right? And so we really appreciate you. You spoke beautifully. Larry Cowan. You know you have something good in store.
Well, I'm Maxine's son, for those who don't know me, and Paul's stepson. You'll be happy to know that the speech I was going to give was about 35 minutes, but I shortened it to 32 minutes. So bear with me. So it took a few years. I don't know if any of you had a second father or a stepfather, but it took me a couple of years, few years, but I stopped seeing Paul as a stepfather and more simply as a second father. Somewhere inside I was able to figure out that my first dad wouldn't mind this. That's because Paul treated my mother, Maxine, so well. There's no way that my mom would have lived to nearly 95 if it wasn't for Paul. And that's not just because he physically protected and cared for her, but also because of his love for her. I never had the privilege to have met his first wife, Harriet, but I'm sure by Paul's nature that there was the same mutual love. And Paul's family reflects that love. His sons and his daughter are amazing, wonderful people that I'm very honored to have known in these years. So, I am someone who was fortunate enough to have two amazing fathers. My dad, Arthur, passed away when he was 75. And then my mom happened to live next door to Paul and met Paul about 3 years later. My dad and Paul were very different personalities. My dad was an IRS agent, and Paul was the archetypical salesman. Nevertheless, both of them were quite similar in that both had the most important virtues in life: honesty, loyalty, and fortitude. They were both members of what's called now the Great Generation. That was the generation which defended our country and the world from tyranny in World War II and the Korean War. We look back at these men and women with awe when we watch movies or read about what they did. But the interesting thing about that generation was they generally looked upon their deeds as a matter of course and nothing that wouldn't be expected of anyone. As everyone already knows, Paul was a very special person and typified that generation. For me, he was a father, an advisor, and a sage. The simplicity of his advice was almost Zen-like. For instance, the Cowan family, our family, tends to be kind of perfectionistic and a little bit of worriers. So it helped me being that way, being a physician, but those tendencies can be very burdensome as well. Paul would consistently remind me to stop worrying about things of which I have no control. Also, he would tell me, Larry, whether or not what you're worrying about happens, we will still be having breakfast the next morning. Those are just two of Paul's phrases, seemingly simple approaches to life's challenges, but they worked if one is reminded of these lessons often enough. Unfortunately for me, it was necessary for Paul to repeat these things regularly. After a while, all he'd have to say was an abbreviation of the original thing, like, Larry, what about breakfast in the morning? Or sometimes just, Larry, breakfast. Then I was able to put things back into perspective. I'm not sure what I'm going to do now without his consistent imparting of these and other wisdoms, but I guess I'll remember them by simply repeating what he taught me by imparting those things to my patients and others. That's probably one of the greatest things about Paul. He spread that good-natured personality to the rest of us. Just one of the reasons everyone loved him. The great British writer Somerset Maugham wrote, quote, "Nature has neither love nor hate, and with indifference smiles upon the light at heart, and to the heavy brings a deeper sorrow." Well, Paul, though bearing burdens of which we are all familiar, definitely exemplified the former rather than the latter characteristic of this quote. He was light of heart, and subsequently nature did smile upon him. Everyone here should learn by his example that a big reason a guy can live to practically 96, despite the fact that he had more heart procedures than any other person or patient I have ever known. Finally, I'm not sure who originally wrote or said this, but the saying goes, a Jew's purpose in life is to try to heal a broken world. Well, Paul did this without trying. I will miss him so much.
Thank you, Larry, for making your speech 31 minutes. I think if you were in the sun with everyone else, you'd make it 10 minutes. Okay, thank you. We'll call up Richard. He'll be the last speaker.
All right. All right, enough of that. For those of you who know my dad, that would have been probably the most appropriate walk-up music for him. Love those Three Stooges. I just want to honor him by starting with that. Thanks all for coming. I appreciate the military ceremony, the commander and the E5 who was here to say those kind words about my dad. We honor him and celebrate. Oh, excuse me. It's happening.
He's doing it.
We honor him and celebrate him today as a father, grandfather, great-grandfather, Uncle Paul, Papa, and your friend. Not sure what's going to come out of my mouth right now, but here we go. We all loved him very much. It was easy, very easy to love my dad. He was a very rough diamond, very rough. He exuded a lovable manner, especially with all of us. Not all the time, to all his friends and family, but he had a lot of rough edges to him, let me tell you. And as kids, we experienced them firsthand. And all those rough edges shaped who we are today. And I want to thank him for that. As a small kid, I won't dwell on this too much, he did work a lot. I did not have a chance to see him in the mornings. We never had breakfast together. I was always off on my way. He was off on his at 2 or 3 in the morning to the produce terminal. But yeah, at the end of the day, when I got home, he was always there. Came to every event he could possibly come to, any function he could possibly come to when he could. And it's a rare commodity to see that kind of commitment. Always ended up taking me to the movies, ball games, trips to Pittsburgh when I was even just a little baby. I still remember trips to Pittsburgh, driving through the tunnels with the Browns and everybody. Those were great times, absolute great times. I'll never forget one movie he took me to back in 1975. Anybody remember what came out in 75? Dun, 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 dun. Jaws. The whole family went to Severance to see Jaws. A 9-year-old kid. I was born in '66. Let's go see an R-rated movie. Why not? So we all go see Jaws. And a couple weeks later, he lined up a trip to Florida. He goes, I'm going to take my son to Florida, to Orlando, to Disney. We're going to have a great time. And then we're going to go down to take the Amtrak down to Miami. Well, each step of that journey was, lack of a better word, it was a shit show. It was bad. By the time we got down to Miami in the hotel, I wouldn't go in the water. I wouldn't go near the beach. You couldn't get me in there because Jaws was in there. I've never met a man so upset wasting his time taking a kid down to the beach who wouldn't even go near the water. So, but it was time I spent with him. He did all those kind of trips. Florida, Toronto. He took time to go with his youngest son, one-on-one, and I thought that was, I'll always remember those. The movies, another movie, Center Mayfield, he just got that big blue Buick, that 82 Buick Electra with the Landau roof. He worked so hard for that damn thing. He worked so hard. We go to the Center Mayfield, we'd come out to the parking lot across the street, nothing but a pile of glass in the parking lot. Car was stolen. I felt so bad for him. He had to come home and tell Mom the car was stolen, but they ended up finding it. They ended up finding it whole and brought it back to him. He had that for several years. Life choices for me. I wasn't the easiest to deal with, even now. Always seemed to be making an awkward choice or a questionable choice with what I was doing at the time as a teenager. And I gotta say, he was the one person who convinced me, well, didn't convince me, but he would prod and he would go about maybe going into service, or, and he saw I didn't have any direction. I just knew I didn't want to go to college. So one thing, I didn't want to sit in the classroom and be lectured to all day. So he kind of poked me in the direction of the military, and he said, are they still here? He said, don't go in the Navy. He goes, unless you want to spend 9 months on a ship, they don't go in the Navy. So I ended up going in the Air Force, and that one decision, when I look back, that he helped me make, he guided me. He didn't force me to make it. He let it be my choice. That was the one decision that changed the trajectory of my whole life. My whole life. And I owe that to him. So, thank you all for being here. I know he would appreciate it if we had more time or more heads-up notice. I'm sure the crowd would be triple the size for this guy. He was nobody's fool. He was the genuine deal. He loved you, and when you needed punishment, he handed it down. All right? Yeah. Wait till your father gets home. The famous last words. Well, I wish I could wait until he got home today, but rest in peace, Dad. Rest in peace.
Thank you, Richard. Bobby, maybe you'll educate me on half of his speech later. Okay, we're going to do the traditional rendering of the garments now. The actual children come up. 4 children come up.
Where are those 3 guys that
We'll do it together with a blessing. But you can sit. You can sit.
You can sit. You can sit.
Oh, there we go.
We'll get you. Okay. Right side. Okay, left side. Just gonna make a little cut. Okay. I've never done this. Okay, you want to do a show? Okay, and hold the tear, face your dad. Hold the tear in your tie, and give it a pull, and we'll say together, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Dayan Ha'emet. Give it a little riff. Okay, that's good. The idea of this is that we acknowledge God's true judgment, that we don't understand why things happen in this world, but we acknowledge the judgment as being righteous and for our best. Okay, we're going to lower the casket. The casket will be lowered, and it'll be followed by the final Keil Mali Rachamim prayer and Kaddish. During the time of the lowering of the casket, it's a Jewish tradition that we ask on behalf of the family and friends for forgiveness. Forgiveness of our loved one. Because as much as we've done, as much as we've served, as much as we've loved and helped, there's always something wanting, because human beings aren't perfect. That a father has given so much to his children, and the children ask from their father forgiveness, to say, we meant best, and if there was something that we did that wasn't up to par or what you deserve, we ask for your forgiveness. And we ask you to go up to God, stand before the heavenly throne, and be an advocate on our behalf, that we find health, goodness, success, nachas from the kids, and all good things, only happy occasions moving forward in our lives. Take some earth and pour it out on the casket. Just be mindful.
We